God is all there is, in and through all things, as all things. First cause, divine intelligence, manifesting of itself, this creation we call life. Everything that is, everything that ever was, everything that ever will be, God expressing itself in a myriad of ways. And I know that I have my very being in this expression, that I am a unique, individualized manifestation of this expression we call life. And as I know this for myself, I know this for each and every one of us. I know that each of us are a miracle, a unique, individualized expression of God. And I know that we have a very being in this field of infinite possibilities. So I claim for each of us this day that through the music and the prayers, through the inspirational message, that we go deeper in our awareness of this truth, that we are truly beloved expressions of God, living in a field of infinite possibilities, unlimited. And so, in this moment, in this day, I give thanks. I give thanks for each of us that have showed up today. I give thanks for the deepening in awareness that each of us goes, the deepening as the words are spoken, the greater awareness of our own divine beauty. And I am thankful. I am thankful for each and every person who has showed up here today. And I release this word into the loving expression of God as spiritual law, where all things are possible, where all things are manifest. And I just simply release this prayer and let it be so. And we say together, and so it is. Good morning. My name is Don Coburn, and I'm a licensed practitioner. And I'd like you to join me in our affirmation today. Here we go. My life is what I make of it, thought by thought. And herein is the possibility to express the divine that is at the center of all life. And so it is.
Good morning, beautiful people of the Center for Spiritual Living. I'm out at Spring Lake, where spring has definitely started to show itself with all the beautiful new green growth. I can already feel my spirits lifting as I see nature renewing itself. It's also a really good reminder for me to not depend only on outer signs of change to let my spirits be lifted up. I have to remember sometimes to be a bit more proactive and keep in mind that outer change is also a result of inner shifts in consciousness. This is something we're looking at this month when our theme is change. Today's speaker is somebody who needs no introduction. It's our Assistant Minister, Reverend Joyce. And next week we have with us Dr. Kathy Hearn, who is the past community spiritual leader of our movement, somebody that we are very excited about having at the center. And I know both of these women are going to deliver to you a wonderful message, and I look forward to seeing you back at the center again in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
You know, it really is encouraging us all to let go of that smaller version of ourselves and to allow the highest possible version of ourselves to come through. And that is the essence of today's topic, the endless challenge. As you already heard from our senior minister, I'm the assistant minister, Joyce, and it's truly been my good fortune to dive into this topic of change with you this month. You know, not only are we, we are really diving. Not only are we hearing about change at Sunday morning and Wednesday evening and Sunday evening services, but we've got two books supporting us. First, there is the book we're going through all year, A New Design for Living by Ernest Holmes. And this month, we're looking at chapter 5, which is entitled Changes Are Necessary. And then the book of the month is Living as a River, Finding Fearlessness in the Face of Change. Well, not only that, but the staff, we on the staff, not content to just be hearing about change and reading about change, we decided to really get into the spirit of change, so we've been moving furniture around all month long. Yeah, and I have to say that between all these things, I have discovered in myself some places that are change challenged. Earlier this month, Reverend Jeff and I were talking about the chapter of the month, and he said, changes are necessary. Do we really have to be reminded of that? And that was my Reverend Jeff imitation. How was it? On the one hand, you'd think that we wouldn't have to be reminded that changes are necessary, since change is the essence of the world of form and our lives in it. But on the other hand, spiritual teachers, at least as early as the Buddha, have had to point out to human beings that our suffering is caused by our attachment to things, including our attachment to how things are now or how they used to be. In other words, when we resist the natural flow of change that is happening, we will put ourselves in an uncomfortable position. Have you noticed that? At last Wednesday evening service, some of us were privileged to witness a conversation about change between Reverend Kim and Maggie Cole. And at one point, Reverend Kim described this key Buddhist idea like this. He said, both your suffering and your bliss depend on your relationship to change. Both your suffering and your bliss depend on your relationship to change. And that is the endless challenge. Can we relate to change in such a way that it moves us more toward bliss? The author of this month's book, Living as a River, is Buddhist. And he brings great wisdom about change from that perspective. And he also brings in a lot of fascinating studies from both psychology and brain science. And I do want to share with you that I read in there a little way we can cut ourselves just a little bit of slack when it comes to resistance to change. Apparently, there's a way in which our brains are biased more towards seeing what's staying the same than what has changed. There was a study in which the subjects, people walked up to a reception desk, they were handed a form to fill it out, and while they were filling it out, the man behind the desk said, "I'll just grab you some more information," and he ducked behind the desk and he came back up and he handed them the information to them as they were filling out their form. Well, not one person who walked up to that desk noticed that the person who went down and the person who came up were actually two different people. Isn't that amazing? Dressed differently and everything. Amazing. And I noticed something similar in myself recently. My dentist retired, and he chose as his successor a young dentist. And recently, this week, I went in for a bit of dental work, and I found myself focusing more on what was staying the same, the furniture, the staff. And I even went so far as to pay attention to those qualities in the new dentist that were the same as my former dentist. I realized later this was not fair to him. Rather than really observing him to see who he was, I was doing a comparison to my former dentist. So these are the things we're being encouraged to consider this month. How do we relate to change? Can we not get stuck in how things are now, but rather, can we surrender to life as it is moving and changing? How can we drop our resistance to change so that we let go of the lesser version of ourselves and our lives and instead open to that greater good that wants to express in, through, and as us? To encourage us to do this, I offer 3 things for our consideration today. The first is a recommendation that we all get as comfortable as possible with the idea of impermanence. Good Buddhist word, impermanence, not permanent. It is indeed the way of things, the way of our bodies. Yet I think it's fair to say that most of us are reluctant to think about it. I know I am, and I suspect that when I made that recommendation to get as comfortable as possible with the idea of impermanence, you did not think to yourself, I have got to put that at the top of my to-do list. And I understand that reluctance to think about impermanence. A few weeks ago, I realized, I'm going to be speaking. I should start reading the book of the month. So I picked it up. I picked up Living as a River. And when I realized that it was an extended reflection on impermanence, I actually got angry. I thought to myself, how am I going to stand reading 300 pages about impermanence? Fortunately, the book is so engagingly written with personal stories and research and Buddhist wisdom that I found myself gently being drawn in to considering how things, including my body, our bodies, are less solid than we typically think. Did you know that your body is filled with a variety of communities of teeny beings? That actually much of you isn't really human? Did you know that different parts of your body get replaced at different rates, the longest of which is 9 years, which means that you are older than your body? It's awarenesses like that started me questioning the solidity of how things appear. And then there are reminders of how we're constantly in an interchange with between ourselves and the world, taking in and releasing air constantly is an obvious thing. Water coming from far away places and then being released through us back into this vast ocean of life. And even thinking about where our food comes from that we eat, and then it forms our very bodies. When we spend some time thinking about all the beings and people that led to this food making our body, it really does give us a sense of how connected we are to everything. And then there's our skin cells. They are constantly sloughing off, constantly, such that if you took a powerful lens and looked at your skin, you wouldn't be able to tell where the edge was. You couldn't really tell where you end and the rest of the world begins. Have you ever noticed clouds? Have you ever spent some time watching clouds? At first you see something, you think it's solid, but then you notice that new bits are coming in and little bits are leaving, and the shape is very slowly changing. That's a metaphor that the author uses to help us understand what our bodies are like. And of course, he also does continue on to consider how our mind and our self-identity and our personality are similarly always changing. Interestingly, in the course of reading the book, I went from being angry about the idea of impermanence to gaining a sense of wonder and appreciation for the ever-unfolding nature of life, and also a curiosity about what's next. For while we might lose a sense of solidity, we gain a sense of a more open, expanded idea of who we are and our connection to everything around us and beyond. The other good news is that we don't have to think of ourselves as being the way we are now or used to be. All those thoughts, about who I am, don't have to have them. But rather, we can think of ourselves as becoming, human becomings. Because we're always a work in progress. Or as the author puts it, we are all arrows in mid-flight. I love that. It allows me to be more compassionate toward myself and also to other people, especially those I might have a tendency to criticize. We are all arrows in mid-flight. And so it is that these reflections on impermanence can assist us in reducing self-imposed suffering caused by over-attachment to how we think things should be, and instead acknowledging that everything is always changing and that you are part of that beautiful dance of life. You are literally connected to everything and changing as it changes. Here's the second thing for our consideration today. Just because we can learn to allow change to happen without attachment and resistance does not mean that we are powerless in the face of change. There is a way to be non-resistant to change and to be creative in how we are affected by it and how we are affecting it. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, believed that it was the divine plan to have us move from good to more good throughout our lives and beyond, and that our job is to allow and use change for our highest good. The endless challenge: how can we make the best of the changes that happen in our lives? First of all, is to always remember that within all the changes of our lives, there is that which is changeless. According to Ernest Holmes and most of the world's religions, there is that within us that does not change. And this changeless one holds and guides and sustains and maintains and loves us through all the changes of our life. Ernest Holmes wrote this: "We are living in a world of continual change, a world in which thought, thing, and experience are all in a constant state of flux. It is a living world, the creation of a living creature, a living creative intelligence, not a static world created by a God now dead or departed who has left it to decay. No, it is vital and alive." And then he says, "The mind that created the world is not apart from it, but is always active in and through it." Now, this, of course, is the best news of all, because what it means is that right where you are, the creative power of the universe is always available for you to use, no matter what kind of changes are happening in your life. And the way we direct that power is through our thinking. And I don't mean an occasional random thought. I'm referring to consistent, heartfelt thoughts and belief. Consistent and heartfelt. So one question to ask yourself when a change happens is, what am I thinking about and saying about this change? Is it my highest thought or my lowest thought? Where is my attention in this situation? Is it on what's right and improved and exciting and presents new opportunities? Or is it on what's wrong and not the same and regrettable? It's so important to do this kind of attitude check because you see the qualities that we're focusing on are so important, not just because they shape our experience in that moment, but because they also open the door to invite in more of those same kind of qualities. Now, I know there are two kinds of changes that we experience, though there are those changes that we ourselves have initiated, and then there are those changes that seem to happen to us. And I know that it's easier to feel powerless in those changes we didn't initiate or ask for, or maybe even want. The path to regaining power in those situations is by paying attention to our thinking and making sure it's affirmative. Recently, I was watching a movie done by Louise Hay based on her really important book, You Can Heal Your Life. In fact, the name of the movie is You Can Heal Your Life, the movie. It was a great reminder of the power and importance of affirmative thinking, and it caused me to pay more attention to my own thinking. I noticed that in many areas I was pretty good, but there was this one area in my life where I noticed my self-talk was negative and hopeless and disparaging, and I realized that because of this, or connected to it, in this area of my life, I had actually given up my power. I had just handed it right over. So I decided to pay attention to my thoughts. And I decided that if I noticed a negative, hopeless, disparaging one, I would catch it, I would stop everything, and I would announce out loud in a confident and passionate manner what the actual spiritual truth was about the situation. So, if you followed me around, you might see me kind of quietly washing the dishes and then stop with a surprised look on my face and announce the full power and vitality of God is right where I am and right who I am, right now and in every moment of my eternal life, and then go back to washing the dishes. Or we might be riding in the car silently together. I'm driving, you're sitting in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden I sort of straighten up and say, everything I could possibly need is available to me in this and every moment. And so it was for a few days, me silently going through my life and then all of a sudden stopping and announcing spiritual truth. I was telling one of our practitioners, Rafe Ellis, about this, and he referred to it as spiritual Tourette's. I did not ask his permission to quote that, but I'm glad I did. So many of us do come in here feeling tossed about by changes in our lives, and we do learn spiritual tools like affirmative thinking so that we can align ourselves with our divine self and have a more creative say in what's happening. But I think the more advanced work comes in improving on a situation that's already pretty good. I heard a saying here when I first came, which was, never let your good get in the way of your better. And when I heard it, I couldn't make sense of it. I had to go, talk to my confident husband, Reverend Kim. We weren't reverends then, of course. I said, what the heck does that mean? Never let your good get in the way of your better. And he explained to me, of course, it means never let the good you're currently enjoying stop you from receiving even more good. I know for me, when a situation is truly uncomfortable or intolerable, I will do the internal and external work to change. But I do notice areas in my life that are good enough, they're comfortable, and even though they could be better, I notice I'm a little reluctant to take on the work to change them. So that brings me to our final thing to consider. And that is how can we become non-resistant to change. In addition to getting comfortable with the idea of impermanence and with the idea that change is natural, in addition to trusting that the changeless one is there guiding us and assisting us to move into greater good, is there anything we can do to flex our change muscle and strengthen it? Well, I think so. In addition to up-leveling our thoughts about change when it happens, how about if we actually practiced initiating some changes? Like maybe taking a different way to work, or walking up to someone in your life you've never spoken to and initiating a conversation with them. Or maybe trying a new restaurant, a new food. Or, oh my gosh, how about sitting someplace new in the sanctuary on Sunday morning? Which I understand from the book, the research in the book, Living as a River, is really difficult for people. So you might leave that one till later. How about looking around the house and the closet and the bookshelves and spotting things that really no longer reflect who you are and releasing them? The intention of doing these kind of exercises is to develop is to help us develop the kind of attitudes that we've been talking about. And developing these skills and these attitudes, the point is to get us to a place where we can truly believe in and experience the increasing good in our lives. I want to share with you one of my favorite passages from Ernest Holmes. And I want to let you know that it is my personal intention, one of my life goals, to get to a place in consciousness where I can believe these words all of the time. Here's the passage. Good and more good is mine. An ever-increasing good is mine. There is no limit to the good which is mine. Everywhere I go, I see this good. I feel it. I experience it. It crowds itself against me, flows through me, expresses itself in me, and multiplies itself around me. And sometimes I like to add my own version of that phrase from the 23rd Psalm, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of good forever. And with that assurance, I invite you to turn within for a moment to consider 3 questions. The first question for you to consider is this: is there something I would like to change? In order for that change to happen, what idea do I have to release? In order for that change to happen, what new idea can support me in making the change? And as you bring your attention back to the room, I invite you to affirm with me these words of Louise Hay. There are 4 sentences, and I'll say a sentence, and if it rings true with you, I invite you to repeat it. I am willing to release my old patterns and negative beliefs. I am willing to release my old patterns and negative beliefs. The power that created me has given me the power to create my new life. The power that created me has given me the power to create my new life. I choose positive, fulfilling new thoughts. I choose positive, fulfilling new thoughts. I begin anew, right here and right now. I begin anew, right here and right now. And with that, I invite you to turn once again inward as we go into prayer together. And recognize that indeed there is just this one power, this one presence. Its nature is good, its nature is love. It is indeed everywhere throughout its own creation, meaning that it is where each one of us is. And so as we go forward in our lives from this day, I accept for us more of an awareness of that divine power which is us, which has formed us, which is loving and assisting us. I accept a greater awareness of our ability to be able to hear the guidance of that divine one, allowing us to make the highest choices, have the highest thoughts for our lives, and therefore move consistently from good to more good to more good to more good. I accept an awareness of this in all areas of our lives, relationship, finances, health, career, whatever, all areas, good is expanding. And it is for the way that this awareness and this experience shows up in our experience in our daily lives that I give thanks now, releasing this word to become active in our lives. And so it is. And I invite you for just a moment to linger in the silence. And allow that next breath to deepen a bit, and allow the next breath to begin to transition us to this time of generous sharing of heart and resources with our community. I invite the ushers to stand. While each of us holds our gift in hand, we get to say together, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and prosper. It is evidence of my faith and belief. It does good work in the world and blesses creation. Thank you for receiving the gifts.